Welcome back to the Soul Story Show, where we dive into real conversations and soulful stories to help you live and write your next chapter. I'm your host, Brooke-Sidney Harbor, and today we have a very powerful episode. We are coming off the July 4th weekend, a time where this country celebrates its independence with flags, fireworks, parades, and family gatherings. But today, I want us to pause and ask a deeper question. Whose independence are we really celebrating today? Because while America was celebrating freedom from Britain in 1776, entire groups of people, enslaved Africans, indigenous tribes, women, and the poor, were excluded from that freedom. They were left out of the story, or worse, written into it as objects and obstacles. So today, we're rethinking Independence Day, and we're doing it, of course, through books. Books that challenge the myths, books that reveal buried truths, and books that give voice to the silenced. So, let's start with some truth-telling history. The first book that I'd like for us to look at is A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. This is one of the first books that truly shook me. It's not the sanitized version of history that we were taught in school. No, Zinn doesn't focus on presidents, generals, or so-called great men. Instead, he gives the mic to the people we rarely hear from: workers, women, enslaved Africans, Native Americans, immigrants, and the working poor. This book chronicles American history from the bottom up, spotlighting the street, the home, and the workplace, not the marble halls of power. It's a story told in clear, bold prose, but built on solid scholarship. And more importantly, it's grounded in resistance. Zinn walks us through how real change in this country has always come from the grassroots: the fight for fair wages, the 8-hour workday, child labor laws, women's suffrage, racial justice, and even the right to vote. All of it won by everyday people pushing against violence, resistance, and institutional silence. So, if you're ready to understand what America really is, and you should be based on everything that's happening today, and more importantly, who really built America, this is where you begin. The next book is The 1619 Project by Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones and the New York Times Magazine. This book is essential reading. It begins with the premise that America's true founding might not even be 1776, but 1619, when the first enslaved Africans were brought to Virginia. It's a collection of essays, poetry, and historical analysis that centers Black contributions and the cost of America's wealth. It dares to say you cannot understand America without understanding slavery. And honestly, you can't. And if you also want to do a little bit more, you can check out the 1619 Project documentary on Netflix, and Hulu has an award-winning 6-part docuseries. The next book I'd like to highlight is a National Book Award winner, Stamped from the Beginning: The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America by historian Ibram X. Kendi. If you want to understand how racist ideas were not a flaw, but a feature of American society, this is the book. Kendi explores how policy creates prejudice, not the other way around. In this deeply researched and fast-moving narrative, Kendi chronicles the entire story of the anti-Black racist ideas and their staggering power over the course of American history. He uses the lives of 5 American intellectuals to drive this history: Puritan minister Cotton Mather, Thomas Jefferson, abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison, W.E. Du Bois, and legendary activist Angela Davis. It's dense, it's brilliant, but it's necessary. So, what does it mean to celebrate July 4th when you now know the whole truth? It means we must also reckon with land theft, enslavement, and exclusion. The next book I want to highlight is called This Land is Their Land: The Wampanoag Indians, Plymouth Colony, and the Troubled History of Thanksgiving by David J. Silverman. This book tells the story of the Wampanoag people, the same tribe that helped the Pilgrims survive, only to be later massacred and displaced. This unsettling history reveals why some Native Americans hold a day of mourning on Thanksgiving, a holiday which celebrates a myth of colonialism and white proprietorship of the United States. In fact, it challenges the whole Thanksgiving myth, but its roots stretch right into the origins of American independence. The next book I want to highlight is What to the Slave is the Fourth of July by Frederick Douglass. Okay, it's not a full book. It's only 30 pages, but it is essential reading. In 1852, Douglass delivered the powerful speech calling out the hypocrisy of a nation that celebrates freedom while millions were enslaved. His words still shake my soul. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. And we still have to ask, even today, has that changed? You know, I couldn't do this episode without centering some of the women who are telling the truth too. The first book is Hood Feminism: Notes from the Women That the Movement Forgot by Mikki Kendall. Kendall calls out how mainstream feminism often leaves behind women of color, poor women, and disabled women. If we're talking freedom, it has to include all women. Kendall argues that mainstream feminism has focused far too much on boardroom ceilings and not enough on kitchen table realities. Food insecurity, safe housing, access to education, living wages, mental health support, reproductive rights. These aren't extra. These are feminist issues, and yet they're rarely prioritized. She draws from her own lived experiences growing up with hunger, facing violence, and being hypersexualized to show how feminism has often failed to serve women who need it most. She doesn't just critique white feminism myopia, its tendency to ignore race, class, and ability. She asks a deeper, more necessary question. How can we stand in solidarity if some women are still oppressing others? This is not just a book. It's a mandate for a movement that claims to be about equality to truly become inclusive. Hood Feminism will make you rethink everything that you thought feminism was, and more importantly, everything that it needs to be. The next book is They Were Her Property: White Women as Slave Owners in the American South by Stephanie E. Jones Rogers. This is one of those books that quietly detonates everything you thought you knew about American history and about white womanhood. In They Were Her Property, historian Jones Rogers challenges the long held myth that white women were simply bystanders or victims during slavery. What she uncovers instead is a deeply uncomfortable truth. White women in the American South were not just complicit, they were active, intentional, and profit driven participants in the institution of slavery. Drawing from plantation records, legal documents, and firsthand testimony from formerly enslaved people, Jones Rogers proves that many white women were not only enslaving people, but they bought, sold, and brutalized them, often independently of their own husbands. This isn't just a historical footnote, it's a direct confrontation of the way white womanhood has been protected and sanitized in the national narrative. It's also a call to examine how power, patriarchy, and white supremacy are often deeply entangled, and how they have shaped gender roles in ways we're still reckoning with today. This book is essential for any woman who wants to understand how the fight for equality must include a reckoning with history. So here's what I want to leave you with. July 4th is not just a day to celebrate. It's a day to reflect. It's a day to reclaim the truth. A day to ask, what does freedom mean? And who still needs it? And maybe, just maybe, the most revolutionary thing to do is read. Read to remember, read to understand, read to reclaim our power, and read to write a new story. If you love this episode, be sure to like, comment, and share your favorite truth telling book below. Let's build a library of truth and liberation together. And if you're ready to tell your own story, your soul story, and write your own book, head over to brooke-sidneybooks.com and apply for a book chat. I'm Brooke-Sidney, and this has been the Soul Story Show. Your next chapter starts here.